This Pirate Game Master Tech video is part of the Desolate Tower series, an epic fun house dungeon intended to challenge players of moderate experience. This series is designed for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. If you have conversion questions for other systems, let me know in the comments below. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about a trap that I call, funnily, what are you waiting for? This multi-stage combat trap has a delayed trigger. It offers multiple saves across different physical scores, so we will give them. This room is going to test physicality. It's going to test their problem-solving abilities as players and characters. Um, Things of note for this room specifically are that thieves' tools can be super useful. And the other thing is that this room targets people with holy symbols displayed. So your cleric or your paladin perhaps may find that their foci become a trigger for this trap. All right, so now when the players approach this room, I always have a little bit of text for each of these levels. It's usually like a sentence like this. I say, as you approach from below, a large set of doors looms open in front of you. That would be over here on the left. Leading into a chamber lined with vents along the ceiling. An ornate-looking drain sits in the center of the room. The steel door on the far side of the room appears to be closed, and if checked, it will be locked. This room is on a delayed trigger. If a creature enters, they're gonna. This room should feel wrong. There's a lot about this room that should feel wrong, including these doors here that are open. A DC 15 investigation check will show that the doors can be mechanically closed and locked by some remote process. Now, that should be enough that observant players will say, hang on, let's not step in there just yet. But if they do, there's a delay that will shut the doors 2 rounds after the first creature enters. So you could have a creature walk in, kind of saying, I'm not really digging this, and then like walk back out, and then the trap could go off. That's okay. They're still going to have something interesting waiting for them when it opens, if that's what happens. So it will be okay. Yeah, room after 2 rounds, or if a creature with a holy symbol enters, the door's going to slam immediately shut. So that might separate your party. If the cleric goes, in the middle, you might have half your party in the room and half your party in the stairwell, banging on the outside trying to get in. So there's a couple ways, and they can attack the trap from the outside or the inside. They can try to disable the mechanisms from the outside or the inside. It's a lot easier to disable the mechanisms from the outside if the doors aren't closed, but it is possible. So if they're inside or outside, they can try to get doors open. The trap is going to go on initiative count at 20. So the inner room is going to activate on initiative 20, which gives it a chance to act before most player characters most of the time. You're going to want to roll initiative once the trap is actually closed, the door slam closed. That will be initiative 20, and you're going to slowly start filling the room with water. So the first round, the door is slammed shut, and 2 feet of water pour into the room. With a 10-foot ceiling, the room will be filled in 5 rounds, which means your players aren't quite yet at risk of drowning. But they're going to be they're going to be standing in a puddle of, water that's 2 feet deep, and the doors have slammed shut, and the water starts flowing in. Now, this is probably going to be enough to make, players and characters feel tension, but they're not at actual risk of death yet, right? There's impending peril, but there's no actual immediate peril. So in order to keep this interesting for the people who aren't going to be picking the lock or blasting open the door somehow, we are going to make sure to keep this a fun trap. On rounds 2 and 3, each creature in the chamber is going to have to make a con save versus stun as electrical jolts coming out of the drain zap everyone in the room. The locked doors, uh, both of the doors will be locked. They can be opened with DC 20 Thieves Tools check as an action, but failures will cause an additional water elemental to enter the scene. Oh, that's right. Did I forget to mention that each round until the room is filled, a water elemental is going to pour into the room and start at initiative 15. So that first round, when everybody's standing around in the puddle, all of a sudden a water elemental just stands up out of the water and will attack. Now, after 5 rounds, the room will be filled with water. Okay, so once the room fills up with water and we have 5 elementals have poured into the room, let's go ahead and bring this up. So we have our 5 elementals, and this is the lower floor, this is the top floor. These are where I suggest dropping the elementals. You can see my water elementals down here that I have ready to drag down from my GM side. I would drop one over here. You could have it centered on, this in any square. And same thing, 2, 3, 4, 5. Spread it out. Keep your players front line and back line moving, and flank them a bit. Keep pressure on their casters and stuff. Pressure their rogue who's trying to pick the lock. So on round 6, the drain is going to pop up into the room, and these large blades are going to start spinning. Now they'll hit anything in this area. So if you're in that area when this starts, you're going to have to make a dexterity save to avoid damage. Now I said dexterity save of 15 to avoid all the damage entirely, and I set the damage at 10d10 slashing because I feel like if they avoid it, if they swim out of the way before this really starts spinning and getting momentum, they might be able to escape it entirely. So it'll be okay, and it'll still be scary. It'll still be scary. I mean, I guarantee when this pops up into the room and they're still fighting an elemental or two, your party is they're gonna be super excited when this pops out of the ground. After that, on round 7 and 8, the drain in the center is gonna start letting water out, which means everyone has to swim for their lives as the water draining towards the spinning blades starts drawing them towards the center. So they're going to have to make a DC 15 strength save to resist the pull. Now, maybe you think these saves are too low or too high. I just said 15. It felt like a good number for a room where you're trying to trap the entire party and not trying to kill the entire party necessarily. I mean, I know we want the players to feel like that's what's going to happen, but we're not actually trying to do that. We're just trying to give them the feeling of peril and fun with this. Now, on the 9th round, the water is going to finish draining. So any elementals that are left in here, if, say, for instance, if somebody wandered in here, triggered this, and then they see the doors lock and they're like, whoa, guess good thing we didn't stay in there. And then they hear a bunch of noise, and all of a sudden the doors swing open and water splashes it. Well, a little bit of water like drips into the hallway or whatever. And then there's 5 water elementals who are just ready to go. Roll initiative. This is a pretty fun trap, I think, and your players are not going to forget this. Between possibly stunning some of them and the water elementals with those shocks on the first couple rounds, and constantly changing what's going on with this trap, your players every other round are going to have to change what they're doing in order to adjust to how this trap has changed. So it's never going to feel boring, even if they're doing the same, roll to hit against this monster. It's not going to feel boring. This is going to be a hectic experience for most of your players, unless, they're super geniuses and they don't trigger this thing in the first place. Now, there are some countermeasures, some ways you can figure out how to get out of this. Now, things I had thought was that a spell like Detect Magic might reveal aura of divination magic around in the entire chamber, which might lead them to know there's some sort of sensor in here, which might lead them to think it's a trap, in context with everything else. Now, the doors can be sabotaged before they close so that they cannot mechanically close per the trap. I set this as a DC 16 Thieves Tool check, and if they fail by 5 or greater, it triggers the trap. So I would say if you have a thief standing in the way who's trying to mess with the trap doors and the doors close on them, you might say they end up inside or they might be damaged. However you want to do that, there could be additional penalties. Or it could just be that there's now 5 water elementals that are going to pour into the hallway and fight you in the stairwell, which might be problems. The doors can be opened from the inside or from the outside, but it is done at disadvantage if the room is mostly flooded or while draining. So past the second round or so, you really can't. It's a lot harder to get this thing open as internally the pressure is building and there's water and stuff in the way. So it gets harder to deactivate with your thieves tools as time goes, theoretically. But it's at the start, you just have a locked door and 1 water elemental and potentially your whole party. It's not necessarily the worst thing. Most parties probably could get out of this, before the whole thing cycles. But if they experience the whole cycle, I guarantee it's a trap they'll remember for the rest of their careers as players, and probably into their dungeon mastering days if they go. I have this funny feeling that most of your players, if they run through this, if they're dungeon masters, they're gonna wanna try this out, because this is gonna be a good laugh. In this week's preview, we look at The Strange Party, a puzzle that I have designed. Now, this is not a completely new idea. I have seen something similar to this in, I believe it was a book called Riddle Rooms, and they had something kind of similar to this. I only thought about it after I was working on this puzzle, but it's the same concept. And the idea is that we have a room with 7 statues. Each of them has open hands waiting for uh, players to insert one of these objects that's in the room into their hands. So there are 7 weapons and 7 statues in this room. As you can see, each of the statues has a name along with the armor that they are wearing or lack thereof. And each of the statues is going to have a clue on it. And we will read those to you and leave you with those for next week, where we will discuss the rewards and some other hidden secrets to this chamber. But for now, here are your clues to see if you can figure out this puzzle. Tobias hates bladed weapons and won't stand near anyone with a blade. The paladin in plate feels best when surrounded by blades. The holy man who feels best with a dagger in hand stares at the men that prefer the short bow and the long sword. The party spreads their weapons out. At no point will 3 men with non-edged weapons or edged weapons stand in a line. Gilgamesh was a devout and goodly man, and so surrounded himself with the saints of the gods of good men. The bowman stares at the men with the shorter blades and laughs with his companion boasting the biggest blade. The man who carries the biggest stick gazes at the 2 largest weapons. Well, folks, I'll see you next week. Good luck with this. I look forward to seeing if you can guess the answer. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss future Dungeon Master content from me, the Nerdtastic Pirate. Have a great day.